Hey, so in this video, I want to cover a process to actually use to build posts, marketing, emails, whatever it is, videos, reels, all that good stuff. Anywhere where you are trying to get attention in your market from people who may wish to then become your client, we are going to focus on how to specifically get healthy attention on demand from people who then will turn into clients in the future. So a good few months ago, maybe years ago, was working with a client who had a ton of expertise, really helped the people who he helped, and couldn't get a lot of attention from people whenever he created stuff. He couldn't turn his following of people who really liked him into like really juicy attention. So what would happen a lot was that people would kind of engage on like a social level and not actually turn into a lead or a kind of real genuine, actually, I really want to find out more about that so that we could maybe talk about working together, because that's something that we need. And he had ended up, through no fault of his own, getting banned from the platform where his main following was, which was a complete disaster. And he came to the agency that he worked with and was assigned to me as his person in charge of helping him do the thing to actually start being able to get much better quality of attention and actually extract that attention so it wasn't owned by that platform that was obviously able to shut him down at any time that they chose. And it had been a real pain in the butt for him to get his account back. He was very lucky that he did. And he was like, well, not taking any chances. I want to build my own audience. So we had to extract attention, really good quality attention from his audience and from people outside of his audience so that they would actually jump off that social platform onto his own personal audience, which was his email list, which I helped him build, and then nurture them into great client opportunities and so on. So we went through this process. The first thing I did was sit down with him and iron out how to get his messaging really, really clear. What do we need to say to get really healthy attention on demand from people who then might become clients? And by healthy, what I mean is it feels really clean and aligned and exciting for him, the expert, to say. And that's what we want for you. And it also resonates on a very deep level and an immediate level. That's very, very important with the people who would make great clients for him and need his help. So to do this, we need to overcome a few obstacles. First and foremost, the actual things that you're saying in your posts, videos, emails, whatever it is, doesn't actually connect with either the audience, the people who you want to become clients, or with you. If you do that, then you just get crickets. You just are putting stuff out and no one's responding, or you're putting stuff out and you don't like it. It's not connected to you and who you are. And so even if people respond, you're going to find ways subconsciously to make it harder or to just sabotage, because if you're someone where alignment is important to you, then this isn't going to fly. It's not going to work either short, medium, or long term. So the next problem is if you have a perfectionist approach, it's a complete disaster, which means if you are stalling because this next post needs to be amazing and it needs to do all the things and it needs to be perfect, that is a complete disaster. We'll go into why, but the main issue is you just won't get enough data back because you won't be publishing enough stuff. And the third thing that we need to overcome is that you use AI and it's just bad. This is an extraordinary phenomenon that's occurring at the moment for very, very good reason. I completely understand it. People are just looking to get things done, ticked off their list. And so AI becomes an incredibly appealing way to do that. Just give it the task. Oh my goodness, it's done it. I can't believe it only took one prompt and that many seconds. And now I've got it and I'm not even going to read it properly. As far as I'm concerned, it's done. And then you ship it. And unfortunately, what that does is corrodes the relationship that people have with you because they're not connecting with you. They're connecting to literally a robot. People can sense this. We are evolved as an unbelievably sophisticated social and emotional species. We tune in ways that boggle the mind, and all of that equipment is constantly going, and people's radars go off. They don't even know explicitly all the time why, but they just feel disconnected from you. Often, if you lean too much on AI, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't use it or it's inherently bad and that you can't get good results from it, but the way that many people do it, especially if they're in a rush and they just need to get stuff ticked off the list and shipped out the door, it can do a lot more harm than good. And I know this because I know of a bunch of very, very successful companies who outsource, who got like a workflow done to extract themselves out of the process so more stuff could be put out there, and found that it just did a crap ton of damage. And that's with AI plus human beings then editing it, but because they were disconnected from the soul that emerges in our thoughts and therefore our written or spoken word in our marketing, the level of relationship building that happens when we show up in our own businesses as us authentically could not happen because we weren't, those people were not showing up, robots were. So let's talk about how to figure out the opposite state of these so we know exactly what the milestones are for us to be able to get healthy attention on demand and turn them into clients. So the first thing is, instead of creating stuff that doesn't connect with either the audience or with ourselves, what we want is to create stuff that has an immediate and full resonance with ideal clients and with ourselves. Instead of having a perfectionist approach, we want to have experimenter's freedom. This is very, very delightful, very, very liberating, which is why I call it experimenter's freedom. And instead of using AI to make stuff, which turns out is bad, we want to make sure that the words come from us and the process is helped by AI if you want it to be. So how do we get to immediate full resonance with ideal clients and with ourselves? Well, let's start with ourselves. So for you, a great place to start with this is to look at outcomes that you've created. These can be either for yourself or they can be for your clients, or for people who you've helped, etc. And then we want to find within that what's the currency that is going to be most relevant. So what do I mean by currency? Well, we want to find what is the thing within what we do for people that is the most valuable, definable chunk of outcome that they would like to trade in return for their money. So let's break that down. So a great way of figuring this out is to ask the question, what if you help someone, what do you or they use to impress someone who asks about it, or to tell everyone in order to celebrate once it's got better? For example, let's go back to the client that I was helping where he couldn't get really good quality attention when he wanted it from his audience. So if I think back to that story, I think, okay, so what do I say? What would he say if someone said, oh, how did that project go? What would be the one sentence thing that you'd say to impress them or to announce to everyone with excitement to celebrate just how awesome the change that occurred really was? And in that situation, I'd say, yeah, it went really well, actually. And then this would be the currency. After a couple of months, we were generating 100 new leads every single month who were joining his email list. And these were made of literally we made a list of his dream top 10 companies to work with. And these were mostly people from those companies. That is what you call currency. That is the definable outcome that's really exciting, that's hidden in the stories and the outcomes that you've already created for yourself or for your clients or for people who you've helped, even if they weren't officially clients or whatever. This is one of the best things that you can do, full stop, because it comes from you, it comes from your past, it comes from your stories, from your experiences with applying what you know as an expert to actually create outcomes. And it distills it into outcome statements that are tangibly and by definition, because of how we're looking for these, connected to you first and foremost. So then, how do we make sure that we connect these with the clients? Well, we want to research. We want to find this out. We want to get the language that people use to talk about what's going on for them now in relation to the thing that you help with. So you want to go through their words, and this can be by going to Reddit. It can be going through reviews for related books on Amazon, for products, for other service providers. You can find stuff on Google Maps. You can find stuff in all sorts of places and actually go through the text of people's reviews and find the immediate wants and frustrations that were either successful or unsuccessfully resolved by the thing that they went to get help with it. You can talk to people. If you've got great relationships with clients, or even if you don't, this might be a great way to start resolving that. Approaching them and saying, hey, look, I'd really love to have a conversation to figure out and hear in your words what's important to you when it comes to what I help with. And ask if, so that you can listen properly, you can just record that conversation so you can actually engage and ask questions instead of having your head down and making notes. That's going to be an absolute gold mine for what people find important now. What are the scenarios that are occurring in like today to 30 days time that they just want dealt with? And you can connect the dots if you're like, yeah, I don't think that that's what my product or my program or my service actually is built to do. That's not how I talk about it. Well, then maybe that's what the problem is. That's what you need to start figuring out and connecting the dots with. And a great way to do this is to ask yourself, so if I do the thing that, as far as I'm concerned, is what my product or program or offering is and what it does, what are the knock-on effects? What are the frustrations that would solve in the short term? What are the immediate wants that you would experience in the short term that would show you instant progress? Even if that's not what explicitly I think of myself as doing, what are the things that the people who I help really care about that does have an effect on? Find those stories, connect them with find those relevant things that people care about, the now hooks, the immediate wants and frustrations that they have, and connect them with the stories from either your experience solving this for yourself or people who you've helped. So what do I mean by experimenter's freedom as opposed to a perfectionist's approach? And how do we actually get there? Well, this is something I learned from Joe Hudson, and he talks about how we see failure in a very specific way. And failure and the concept of failure is disastrous if we want to be able to persistently take action to something, because if we see something as pass fail, which is inherently what a perfectionist sees things as, this needs to be perfect, otherwise there's some negative consequences, and that equals failure in their mind with that framing of that approach. It's just a mindset. It's not innately true or false. This is just a story that we tell ourselves. So the difference with having an experimenter's freedom is that you remove the end date in the framing. So instead of saying, I need to get this Facebook video uploaded and it needs to be perfect, I need this to succeed, I need this to do XYZ outcomes. Instead, you say, well, what would happen if I did this particular post like this and then saw what happens, and then compared that with the post that I might do tomorrow, and then the day after that, and then the day after that? What are all of the things that I might discover and find out if I did these experiments for a certain amount of time? And what happens if you do approach it with that experimenter's mindset? The freedom that you get is in the data that you will receive. So the other thing, which is relevant here, that you can do to make this actually happen really practically and go from thinking a little bit like a perfectionist, like, oh, I need to do this and I need to do it well, and the end date is this post that I'm working on, this bit of marketing, this email I'm sending. Instead of that, you change the frame to the experimenter's freedom and you remove that end date, which makes it pass or fail, by listing 20 hook experiments. Here are 20 hooks. I don't know which ones are going to work. I think these all sound pretty good. These are based on the research that I've done, clients, Reddits, looking at reviews, having conversations with clients, past and present, and people who I'd love to be clients, and asking them what's important, looking through the stories of my experiences as the expert and figuring out what's the currency, what's the juicy bit, what's the one sentence that either me or the person that I helped would use to just demonstrate in one sentence, this is how awesome it was. Look through them and find 20 hook experiments that you can use. And the approach is to go, right, I'm going to go about doing these 20 hooks and then looking at all of the juicy data that I'm going to get as a result. So the difference is you're not saying, I've got one post to do and I'm going to see if this works. And it better work and it better impress me. Otherwise, it's a failure. You're moving the goalposts, just taking the goalposts down and being like, right, the only job I have is to kick a ball in 20 different ways. There are no goalposts. I'm just going to kick a ball in 20 different ways. I'm going to start with like toe punting, and then I'm going to use my laces, and then I'm going to see what happens if I kick it on the left, on the right, on the bottom, on the top. And then after you've done that 20 times, you'll have so much more actual data. And then ironically, you'll have so much closer to perfection happening naturally and much more enjoyably as a result. So how do we get to the point where the words are coming from us, but are being helped by AI if that's something that we want to use? You don't have to. Well, the first thing is literally set this up so that you are talking to one person who you're trying to help and then record that experience. And this works obviously for shooting video. Like at the moment, I've got a specific person who I'm talking to, and this is probably resonating with you if you've got this far. And that's because I'm genuinely in my head talking to one person. When I remember to, I'm again, not getting this perfect, but I have a definite single person who this video is speaking to specifically to help them with. And I'm recording it, and this is going to be a transcript that then I sit down and do a bunch of work to evolve and make feel great, make feel connected to me. Like, yes, absolutely, I stand by this. This is exactly what I have to say to help this person. So the other thing that you can do is to get AI to help with certain parts of the process. For example, the Reddit research, review research, going through conversation transcripts. You can get AI to help with that and to actually compile a bunch of stuff, a bunch of piles of raw ingredient. It can be your sous chef, where instead of you, the master chef, having to sit there and chop tomatoes, like go through Reddit, search Reddit and so on, you can get AI to be like, okay, this is a dish I'm cooking. Here are the ingredients that I need. So here's the post that I'm creating. Here's the research that I need you to do. Go on Reddit, look through, here's a URL of a Amazon book review. I want you to look through the reviews that people have left for this book and find verbatim, so literally in the exact words that people have used in the reviews, everything that relates to, and then talk about the currency, talk about the immediate wants and the immediate frustrations that people have, and that is what you're looking to get. So there are a bunch of custom GPTs that you can use to do this. I've used them. I've built some of this. And then afterwards, so what you do after you have all of this stuff that AI gives you, then you go to this step, literally talk through speaking to the person who has all of these points. The other thing you can do is if you do get AI to do drafts, to create the written stuff, the scripts, the posts, etc., go through it, saying it out loud afterwards, at least at a bare minimum 3 times. I know very, very well off marketers and copywriters who insist on doing this stage 10 times at the minimum. And that's for things that they've written themselves, not got AI to do. And what happens is as you speak this stuff out loud, you somatically experience bits that are just not sitting right. And then you are compelled to just correct it, tweak it, edit it. Yeah, no, it sounds better like that. That's not what I meant. This is what I meant. Or that sounds weird. AI's kind of just like left a gap there that's like the most important bit. Okay, I'm going to jump in and actually figure out, engage your brain with the mental resistance of thinking, which is literally what people are paying you for if you're an expert, is that you've gone through a whole bunch of this internal figuring out, thinking out resistance and got a whole lot of experience actually doing stuff. And now you're able to share that experience to help them get to where they want to be faster. This is literally the work. So I want to add a few more practical and very actionable, immediate things that you can do about some of this stuff. So going back to when we are looking to get immediate full resonance with ideal clients and with ourselves, when collecting the stories, a really great way to do this, when you look back at the outcomes you've created for you, for your clients, and for other people, looking for the currencies that are within those stories and experiences in your past as the expert. A really great exercise to find this is called sacred listening. I can't remember the name of the person I learned this from. It's really effective. What you do is you write a question at the top of, I prefer, and she recommended, a piece of physical paper with pen and paper or pencil and paper, whatever. You can also perfectly happily do it on a note app, or I've done this actually dictating to a AI program that is transcribing my thoughts. And I've done this whilst going out. I've done this on a dog walk, going into town, going to a coffee shop, etc. You write out the question. In this case, that would be something like, and you always start it with what might. The word might is really great because it elicits curiosity and possibility. It infers that there are things that you don't currently know that you could know if you actually thought about it as if they existed, but you don't quite have a grasp on them yet. All of that's very, very, very stimulating for retrieving very useful, specific information like this. So you start off the sacred listening by writing a question at the top, something like, what might be some outcomes that I've created for either myself or for clients that would be immediately resonant with the kind of clients I want to get in the future. Then you would write a little bullet point mark, and then you would open yourself to receiving what to write after that bullet point. So you might go, yeah, I helped that client who'd been banned on LinkedIn to get 100 leads a month. Awesome. Write that down. And then immediately after writing something like a story that comes to you, or an example, or an answer that pops up in your mind, you do another bullet point, and then you wait for the next thing to come up. And the person who I learned this from's idea with the writing the next bullet point is that you basically create the space where an answer is required, and then you wait for the answer. So you're kind of requesting by putting a bullet point that you then complete that bullet point. You've opened a loop. Something needs to be completed. And then your brain goes, okay, we better find something to go where that bullet point is, because otherwise it's just an empty bullet point and I can't have that. And then you put in another one, and then you do another bullet point. So you're just basically opening the next bit of space that is requiring, it has a degree of tension in it that your brain wants to resolve. So that's a really, really helpful exercise for this step and for a bunch of other steps as well, for example. For actually helping with the research, where if you go to Reddit, you want to get Amazon book reviews, I've got a great prompt. I'll drop this by this video so you can find it immediately below or around this video. And it's very simple, and it can get you game-changing results from just dropping this. And I'll add that around this video so you can use that. So for listing 20 hook experiments and then doing them for data, this is another exceptionally good place to use the sacred listening exercise that I've just described. And a really easy way, if we go back to the getting rid of the perfectionist approach by removing the end date, a really easy way to do this is to actually just right now listen to yourself, put your attention in kind of your body and just ask yourself, okay, so what does it feel like if I say this is going to be a failure if it's not perfect by, and then insert a time frame, in the next 2 hours? What happens in your body when you ask that question and frame this like that? And then ask yourself, okay, this feeling, whatever happens in my body, is that an attractive energy for clients? My guess is no, it's not. My guess is that you have an element of kind of tension, of kind of, if I do this, I find that I have a greed and desperation that bubbles up. I get a bit snatchy and a bit grabby, a bit kind of feral, like I want stuff. I'm desperate. This is tense, and I want this to be perfect. It's not a good feeling to have while doing your work. It's not a good feeling for people to catch on to when they are engaging with your work. So with the process of using words that actually come from us, that are helped by AI, if you so wish to, there are two immediate tools that you can use very easily. One is otter.ai. I think it's all right. The reason I mention it is that it's free and it will just transcribe everything you say. And then you can kind of forget about writing and creating stuff, and you can speak to one person in your head, or even ask them if you can buy them a coffee if they give you 20 minutes to do this exercise so that you can get the transcript. You can help them with a problem that's relevant to them, get the transcript, and so you can use it to create content from it that is literally in your voice, because it is your voice. The reason I hesitate recommending Otter AI is because I find them a bit annoying. They really latch on. They rely on converting free users into pay users. And so they get pretty insistent with following up with you. And they make it look like you have to pay for things where you kind of don't. Another way of doing this is I've got a custom GPT that I built that does nothing but let me either talk to it on my computer or on my phone, on the ChatGPT app in my phone, hit the microphone button, dictate my thoughts, and all it does is take that transcript, that voice to text transcript, and then put it into the exact same words as I gave it, but formatted so it's got decent punctuation. It's corrected if there are any brain farts with the AI voice to text transcription, and then lay it out with like nice, plenty of white space so it's super easily readable. That's a custom GPT. I will link that also around here. So that's it. If you want to get healthy attention on demand from people in your audience or outside your audience who might then be a really great fit to become clients and will be really invested in and interested in becoming clients if they're a great fit, this is the process that I'd recommend using. Start off by doing the sacred listening exercise to find the outcomes that you've created already as an expert. Find the currencies that are contained within them. They are the juicy bits that are going to immediately get attention when you create anything with this. Then match that with connecting with the clients by go ahead and use my prompts to get the research of finding the actual now hooks that represent what really good clients are going to resonate with already in their world, from their perspective, in their experience. So if you say that, it matches where they are at and is going to create that attention. And then you can bridge the gap with the currencies, with the exercise before. See it as experimenting, a list of 20 hook experiments that you're going to use, and just see it as what happens if I go through these 20 hooks and see what data I get. Then use the approach of not leaning on AI doing the thinking work for you, but using it as an assistant and a sous chef, something that you are then responsible for putting into your own words. You can do that by thinking of one person and then recording yourself talking to them and helping them. You start off by reading the by using the language that's come up with in your research, with your own experience and with your ideal client's language and resonating with their experience. And then you may choose to get AI to write that for you. If you do, that's fine. I would suggest that you get a recording of you starting off speaking to that language, to those things that resonate with where someone is right now, and then going ahead and taking that transcript and editing it. Edit by saying stuff out loud, whether it's your stuff or whether it's AI stuff. Read it out loud. That way it's going to poke you uncomfortably where it doesn't feel like clear, like it makes sense, like something you would say, like something you're happy to be heard saying as a person. All of that works so much better if you actually say it out loud. Cool. Let me know if you have any questions or if you have anything else that would be useful for me to help with. I will be very happy to hear anything that would make this faster, easier, better, more enjoyable, clearer to do.